Alright, our next video is going to be on factoring, something that I really don't think you've ever done before, unless you've taken this class before, but I don't think we are in that boat yet. So we got the sum or the difference of two cubes. The last video was this, remember the last video was just the difference of two perfect squares, and this one is the sum or the difference of two cubes. Now, first of all, let's talk about cubes. I did last time it was perfect squares. This is perfect cubes. So if I do like 1 to the third, that's 1. 2 to the third is 8. 3 to the third is 27. 4 to the third is 64. 5 to the third, 125. 6 to the third, 216, and so forth. Alright, so these are your perfect cubes. Those are your numbers. Probably won't get a lot bigger than that. Probably the only one that's a lot bigger than that you would come up with would be 10 to the third, which is 1,000. Okay, so keep these numbers in your brain. And so we're going to have to use them for factoring the sum or the difference of two cubes. Okay, so like, why don't I start out with one that's pretty easy to begin with, and it goes like this: x to the third minus 125. Now this one does have a minus, and it means it's the difference, but it doesn't have to, but this problem does. I look at this, there's nothing in common. Remember, you're still supposed to ask yourself that. There's not a number other than 1 in common, and there is not a letter in common. So there's no greatest common factor. It's not the difference of two squares, because that's a third. It's not squared. And 125 is not a perfect square. So therefore, I know it's not the difference of two squares. So now you're thinking maybe it's the difference of two cubes. And it is. Now, this is brand new. Your answer every time is going to look something like this. You're going to have a binomial. And then you're going to have a longer one here that's going to be a trinomial. Okay, so now you always have to get this binomial first. So how do we get this binomial? And it's the most important part. You basically take the cube root of that term, which is going to be an x. You take the cube root of that term, which if you go back to the previous list, or if you wrote them down, that was 5 times 5 times 5. That was 5 cubed. So you get that here. Whatever sign is there, whether it's a plus or a minus, it goes in there. So that's going to be your first, that's your binomial that I spoke of right here. Okay? This binomial is now what you use to get the trinomial. To get the trinomial, you take this one, you square the first term, so x squared would go right here. To get the middle term, you take these two and you multiply them together, which is 5x. Now, one thing I just realized, I need to go back, correct myself, because I need to know what kind of sign am I putting in right in there. Okay, so the deal is, whatever sign you have here, you always put the opposite one there. So since I have a minus in here in the binomial, that one leads off. That one's going to be a plus. Again, this 5x, because you took x and 5 and multiplied them together. The next sign is always positive. So that one right there is always going to be a plus sign. Always. To get this last term of the trinomial, you square the last term there. So 5 squared is 25. That's your binomial, x minus 5. Your trinomial that I mentioned is going to be x squared plus 5x plus 25. And that's your factored form. Okay? All right, let's break down another one. All right? Now, let's see. Let's try something like this. 8x to the third plus 1. All right, when I look at that, there's nothing in common. It's not the difference of two squares, because it doesn't even have a minus sign. So you're thinking, are all these perfect cubes? And yes, they are. 8's a perfect cube. That's cubed. And 1 is a perfect cube. Notice 1 is on your perfect square and your perfect cube list. So I'm going to get my, remember it's a binomial, and then you're going to have a trinomial. The binomial is what you got to get first. It comes from this whole thing. You take the cube root of 8, which is 2. Cube root of x third is x. Whatever sign is there goes in the middle. And the cube root of 1 is 1. That's your binomial. You use that binomial to get your trinomial. To get this first term, I said you take this first term and you square it. So that would be 4x squared. Then the sign that goes next is the opposite of whatever was here. So if that was a plus, this one's going to be a minus. To get your middle term, you're going to multiply this one and this one together. So 2x times 1 is 2x. What I say, the next sign is always going to be positive. That's always positive. This last term is you take the 1 and you square it. 1 squared is 1. Your final answer, 2x plus 1 is your binomial. That's a 1. 2x plus 1. And your trinomial is 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. That's your answer. Alright, let's try another one. How about, what if it doesn't even have any letters? I'm going to do 2 more. And then if there's no questions, I'm going to let that be it. So, x to the third plus y to the third. Alright? Nothing in common, not even some numbers at all, really. So, what we're going to do is we're going to break that down. But these are both cubes, and that is a plus. So, it's the sum of 2 cubes. So, this binomial, I'm going to take the cube root of x to the third is x. Bring that sign down. Take the cube root of x, y to the third. It's going to be y. Now, that one is going to give me this one. So, I'm going to square the first term. So, that would be x squared. Change the sign. So, that would be minus. Change it from whatever that is. To get this middle term here, you take these and you multiply them together. Well, x times y is just xy. What is this sign? Oh, I think I heard somebody say it. It's always positive. And then this last term is you take this y and you square it. And that's your final answer. X plus y, x squared minus xy plus y to the third. If I went too fast, remember, reverse, reverse. And the next one, I'm going to do one more. Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, you said to the third instead of square.
Oops, I think I said something wrong on that last one. Let me go back. Nope. Just to make sure I said it right. Your binomial is x minus y. And then I have x squared. Change the sign. I said that wrong, I think. I got x squared plus xy plus y squared. Alright, that should be your final answer. Alright, now, last one for sure. Unless I got a question. And I'll entertain questions after this one. Alright, so that's going to be 27x to the third minus 1000y cubed. So again, 27x to the third minus 1000y cubed. So there's nothing in common between 27 and 1000. But it is, both of these are perfect cubes. So this kind of factoring is not a hot topic, but it's definitely one that you should do in Algebra 2, and that's why I couldn't let you slide, because some of you are going to go into college algebra or something like that, and I didn't want it to go by without you having at least seen it some. So I'm going to take, to get this binomial, you take the cube root of 27, which is 3. 3 times 3 times 3. Take the cube root of x cubed is x. Keep the same sign. If that's a minus, keep a minus. The cube root of 1000, remember, was 10 times 10 times 10. So I'm going to put a 10 here. And then the cube root of y cubed is y. Okay? So 3x minus 10y is my binomial. I use that to get my trinomial. Okay? So I'm going to take the first term, 3x, and I square it. That gives me 9x squared. That goes in the first spot. The sign that goes next is always the opposite of whatever you have right there. So that's going to be a plus. To get the next term, you take the two terms from your binomial, the 3x and the 10y, and you multiply them. So 3 times 10 is 30. And you have an x and a y this time. Your last sign is always positive. I think I've said that. I don't know how many times. This sign right here, this one right here is always positive. No matter what about anything else, it's always positive. And then to get this last term, you take the last term of your binomial and square it. 10 squared is 100. And then y squared goes there. So your final answer, your binomial is 3x minus 10y. Your trinomial is 9x squared plus 30xy plus 100y squared. Final answer. This is the sum and the difference of two cubes. Notice that on the cubes you can do a plus or a minus. Remember on the squares, perfect squares we did a while ago, it had to be a minus. So that's a major kind of comparison there on those two. Anybody got a question? I didn't think so. If you do, S. Harnage at slyk12.org. Send me any questions. I can help you. Don't get distressed. No, I care about y'all. Y'all know that. And if you got some questions, let me know.